Day exteriors aren't the easiest thing to make look good because you have to deal with the sun the most. Now, the sun is great because it is the most powerful light that we have. It's just we have no control of it. Now, sometimes you can get lucky if you shoot on an overcast day, then all you really have to do is add neg and you should be good. It should look pretty good. You don't always have that luxury, and here in Australia, it can be pretty sunny a lot of the time. So let's do a quick cinematography breakdown of how I shot this scene for a short film that I'm currently working on, and we shot this in the morning. It's a day exterior, it was a sunny day. So let's break down how we did it with basically no budget and very limited gear. So for context, I shot this on the Blackmagic Pixus, which is what I'm shooting on right now, the Pixus 6K. We have to differentiate now because the 12K is coming out, but we shot this on the Pixus 6K with these Contax Zeiss cine modded vintage lenses. They're decent. Let me know if you want me to make a video about them. But we shot this on the Pixus, so that means we have about 13 stops of dynamic range to play with. And because the Pixus only shoots in B-RAW, then we have B-RAW. So let's have a look at the images and we'll talk about what I did to make them look like this. Now, this first image here, this is the, I guess, establishing shot of this dialogue scene. This is a very basic scene. There was only this shot and then two over the shoulders. It's not a long scene. We didn't need a heap of coverage of both the actors. We're gonna get heaps more in the film later on. So we're seeing one character down the bottom here and then the other character sort of steps into frame this way. And for this shot in particular, I hadn't actually done much to light this sort of scene. Over in the corner over here, just down the stairs, this actor here is actually standing up the top of stairs and then they're going to walk down to be on the same level as this one. So actually over here, behind the stairs, there's actually a little hedge here, and I had to frame it so we couldn't see what I had set up, but I just set up a diffusion with a 300 behind. I think I used the G&G 300 there, and then I just hung what's actually just a shower curtain as diffusion from a C-stand, hung that, and just to give some fill and some direction to the light, especially for this wide shot, because this sun is very harsh and it is not really coming from where we want it to be coming from. But for the rest of the scene, that light wasn't really doing a whole lot. So this scene really is just that one light adding a bit of, I guess, fill on sort of this side of the characters. And then once he gets down there, then it'll be hitting sort of the side of him there. There was none of the dialogue except for the introduction from this shot. So when we move into the next shot, we'll go into our over the shoulders here. So we have our two over the shoulders here. Now this one we're going to talk about a bit more, but let's do the easy one first. Now we're shooting on the shadow side of her face right here. However, she is kind of looking at the sun. The sun is on sort of this side. She's looking, if she looked up and to her left from where she's looking here, she would be looking straight at the sun. So that's not ideal, but it's sort of the best we can do. What I probably should have done in this case is just had them turn a little bit and just come around a bit more. So we're shooting, so she's more here and then we're shooting more into this bush. So then this background is a bit better because all this stuff behind, not that interesting. So probably should have turned them a bit. And then she also would have been a bit more side lit, so we would have had a bit more dimension on her face there. Didn't end up doing that just because of the way that the blocking worked in that bust shot. But because the sun is coming directly down on her here, we had to do something about that. We don't want just harsh sun straight in her face. So what I did is I just got a 5-in-1 reflector with the diffusion, so I took the case off, and it's actually what I've got up on my window right now. I'm just shooting a light from outside through this window through that diffusion. So it's just what is that? I can't remember which one it is, but it's just like a newer 5-in-1 reflector. It's like a meter circle. That's it. So we just put that up on a C-stand, hung that over the top, sort of like, if I zoom out a bit, it was sort of like up here. The sun was down coming through here, and then that's diffusing it there. Now, the one thing that I had to be careful of with this one was the shadow of that diffusion was sort of like right here on the wall behind her. So again, rotating them around probably would have prevented that or made that easier to avoid. We did end up avoiding it anyway, so it's actually fine. But yeah, so that's just diffusing the sun right on her face. And then we didn't need any lights for this scene whatsoever. I think I actually turned the light off that I had over here and in the other shot. Now, another thing that I'm not a huge fan of with this shot in particular is this side of her face just doesn't quite have enough shadow on it. So that is something that can be fixed in the grade if you, get like a power window or something like that, or select a very specific portion of that. You can bring those shadows down. But what would have been better is if I just brought the neg in a bit closer and had it like here. I didn't have a spare stand like handy, like I would have to go get one from inside. So I ended up just leaning my neg flag right here just against this wall. So the neg was just here. And to be fair, this wall was pretty dark, and from about here on the wall, it was in shadow. So it actually wasn't filling those shadows in too much, but as I said, I think it would have looked a bit better if we'd brought the neg in a little bit closer. But for this shot, that's pretty much it. And if you can actually look in here, if we zoom in all the way, this eye light, so it is nice that we're still getting some eye light. Honestly, in the left eye, we may actually just be getting some of the actual sky in there, but there's no direct sun. But then when we do flip, we then get this shot. Now this, I think, is a bit more interesting in the way that we did it, because the sun is actually up here. So it's up behind him. The sun is going to be hitting the back of his head here. So all of this is the sun, but it's diffused. So as you can see here, the difference in her hair there, like it's pretty bright here, but then on this one here, it's a lot brighter. And that's because I had to move the diffusion to then go behind up here. So then the light hitting the top of his head here and his shoulders isn't just harsh sun. That would have been too bright, especially these little reflections down here. So I used the diffusion for that, and we obviously couldn't just diffuse the sun right onto his face there because it was behind him. We're backlighting here. So probably one of the things that a lot of people would instinctively do is, we're being backlit here, so then let's add a fill on this side because we don't want this side of his face to be too dark. And that's understandable, but then that creates what the Wandering DP, if I've been watching a lot of his stuff lately, go check him out if you haven't already. He does this style of video where he breaks stuff down and draw and things and everything. But he calls that the sun sandwich. And I agree with him when he says that it doesn't look good. It does not look good when you've got some sun on this side from the actual sun, and then you're just bouncing it, so then this side of the face is lit. That just doesn't look good. So what I decided to do in this case was a sun wrap. The sun is clearly on this side, right? The sun's coming down this way, we're diffusing it onto his back there. So then, because we're still on the shadow side, we're on his left side, right? We're shooting over her right shoulder, we're on his left side, so then we want to be shooting into the shadow side of his face. We don't want to light this side of the face. So what I did, and you can actually see this in the eye light, in the catch light here in his eyes, it's like a 3x2 flag, one of those 4-in-1 ones, so it's got neg on one side. It's actually what we use for neg on the other shot. On this shot, there's the neg that I put over here. I flipped it to then be the bounce side, and then I use that as a bounce, so then we're lighting this side of his face here. And that, I think, worked a lot better than what it would have if we just full-on sun sandwiched it and filled in this side of his face. I think that would have looked really bad, whereas this looks, I think, pretty decent. Probably could have got away with either adding a bit more neg on this side to darken these shadows a little bit more, and again, same with on this shot, we could have added more neg here to darken that one side of her face. And I think what would have been better in this case is, one, bigger diffusion so we could diffuse the light hitting both of them, because again, like this is very hot here, but just using a bigger bounce, like having a larger bounce, like even like a 4x4 or something like that, or 12x12 or something like that, would have probably made this look a bit better. But I think what sort of ended up happening was pretty good. So when you are backlit like this, like the sun is absolutely behind here, which is sort of what we want. We want to be shooting on the shadow side. We want to be like upstage lighting, all that sort of stuff. Always be shooting towards the light. There are cases where you obviously want to do it the other way around, but in this case, the sun is over here. So then we want to just be wrapping the sun around here, and then just sort of creating that wrap on at least half his face there. And it's almost creating a bit of a Rembrandt sort of lighting, because we are actually getting a little bit on his other cheek there, but then this side is still in shadow. And again, if we had a bit more gear, maybe we could have made this a lot better. We could have diffused a bit more, we could have bounced more, we could have brought neg in here. There was actually no neg for this whatsoever, because the two bounces and reflectors that we used was the flag that we used as the bounce, and that's like right here, and then the diffusion, which is up above. That's all we really had in regards to grip gear like that, I guess. So with a very small budget, we were still able to make direct sun look a lot better. And probably the last thing I'll say about the actual like cinematography of this is actually we'll talk about the framing a little bit. These steps, like, well, I guess the steps over here, sort of like leading those lines to his face there. This line up here, they're leading to his face. And then we've got this depth back here with the, you know, we've got a lot of layers. We've got here, we got here, we got here. We got each of the steps. We got the gate, we got the car, we got the road, and then we got the grass, and then we got the building. And so we have a heap of depth there, which is really nice. That's what we want to create, those layers. And then we've of course got our foreground layer here of, you know, the other person in the scene. And one thing that I didn't really like about the framing of this, and we tried to fix it, was this whole wall is quite boring. Now, originally this sign here wasn't there. That was actually the sign that was out the front of the location that we're shooting at. And we brought that around. It's actually sitting on a chair right now, because it's like, if it was on the ground, we probably wouldn't even see it in this frame. So what I wanted to do here is get like a, you know, like a big plant or something that could be here to just fill in this gap, because it is quite boring. And then we could add, potentially even point a light at it, or I don't think the sun would have hit it, but we could have just sort of made this area more interesting if we could have something up there. The best we could do without going and stealing one of the plants from next door was, you know, just put this sign up there. Originally, when we were looking at it, it was like, oh, this massive wall is just empty. But then we remembered about that, you know, this character would still be in the shot. However, just a little fun fact about these shots here. If you see on this one, we're actually looking down, because this actor is actually significantly taller than this actor. Whereas in this shot, they actually look like they're pretty similar height. In this one, just so she wasn't like here, we actually had her like standing on some bricks, we didn't have an apple box either. So just get her a little bit taller, so we weren't looking either up at him, because we didn't need that for the story. Like it's not meant to be that sort of vibe. But then we also didn't want her just in this bottom part of the frame. So made her a bit taller, that covered in most of this area, and then we put that sign there in the corner, so it's really only this section that is a bit boring, but it's fine. If the sun was coming from a different direction, we could probably get away with, you know, shooting a light at that wall and putting like a pattern on it somehow, but, you know, if anyone thinks about that too hard, it wouldn't make sense, because the sun is clearly behind, coming from this direction, so yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I've been talking for way too long. This was meant to be a quick little breakdown. This film is not out, or maybe it is, I don't know, depends if they let me post this before it's out. I'm actually filming this between, like, we're literally in production right now. Like, we've shot all this stuff, we shot one day, and we have 2 more days to shoot. But I just thought this was a really good example of lighting a day exterior, or not even lighting, because we didn't use any lights for these 2 main shots, with basically no budget, because we used very, very inexpensive gear. Like, I think the 5-in-1 reflector is like $30 on Amazon or something like that. The flag that I used was, I don't know, like 100 and something, because it's got like a wire frame and everything like that, and it goes on a C-stand, and then you obviously need a couple stands. But that was pretty much it. We didn't have any big frames or really any crew. This was all just me doing it. I didn't have a gaffer either, so like this was me setting up everything, which I prefer to have people that can do that, but you know, you don't always get that on these really small indie jobs. So yeah, anyway, that'll be all for this one. Let me know if you want more of this type of content, because like this is, I find this stuff interesting. Let me know if you want more. Go watch another video, do all the other things while you're around. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye. Oh no! Hopefully I actually get a chance to use this this smoke machine on Sunday. This is the Ulanzi Filmog Ace smoke machine. Thank you to Rubber Monkey for sending it to me. Seems pretty good. As of yet, I haven't used it on an actual job yet, but I plan on using it on this film that this scene is from later on in production. There's a specific scene that I want to use it for, and I think it might look pretty good. Anyway, yeah,